Okay, well, we will get started and I'll just go over some basic intros as people trickle in. But hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, What's New in 2024 with Excel? My name is Stephanie, and I will be your moderator for this event. And I'd just like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for this presentation today. And happy Valentine's Day. So today I have with me Bill Jelen, aka MrExcel. Bill is the host of MrExcel.com and the author of now 68 books. He has a new one coming out next week, and they're all about Microsoft Excel, including Excel Gurus Gone Wild, Pivot Table, Data Crunching, and Excel Inside Out. He has made over 80 guest appearances on TV's Call for Help with Leo Laporte and was voted Guest of the Year on the Computer America radio show. He has produced over 2,400 episodes of his Excel video podcast, Learn Excel with Mr. Excel. And before founding Mr. Excel in 1998, Jelen spent 12 years as a financial analyst for the accounting, finance, marketing, and operations department of a publicly held company. And just some basic housekeeping. At the conclusion of the webinar, there'll be a few survey questions about your experience and also about any upcoming topics that you would like to see. You will also receive the slides and the recording from today's webinar within the next 24 hours. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And as a reminder, you must complete 3 out of the 4 live poll questions during this webinar in order to receive your CPE credit. Bill will email them directly to you within 1 week. And again, if you have any questions or you don't see it, please feel free to reach out and we will help you with that. So now a little bit about More for Apps. More for Apps is a certified Microsoft and Oracle partner. We have over 400 customers and 34,000 end users. We offer nearly 30 out-of-the-box wizards and modules built specifically for organizations running on Oracle e-business suite and Oracle Fusion Cloud applications. But let's actually get what we're here for. So Bill, I will hand it over to you.
All right, Stephanie. Hey, this is great to be here on Valentine's Day talking about what's new in Excel. And let me see if I can share my screen here. All right, there we go. So this is the book over here on the left-hand side, Mr. Excel 2024. This book comes out on Monday. But you, because you're here today, will get a link to a copy of the PDF tomorrow. So you can be the first people to have this new book, Mr. Excel 2024. We're going to talk about a lot of new features that are either in Excel right now or are coming to Excel soon. Everything that I show you today is available if you would sign up for Microsoft Insiders, which is free. If you're a Microsoft 365 customer, just Google how to join Microsoft Insiders. They have 2 different versions there. The targeted channel and the beta channel. Why do they use those weird terms? I don't know. You want to use the beta channel for at least a few of these. All right. So today we're going to talk about some great new things in Excel, like Copilot, which is just, like there was even a Super Bowl ad about Copilot. How crazy is that? Not just in Excel, but that's across all of the Microsoft products. But before we get to that, we'll talk about artificial intelligence in Excel, some great add-ins from England, the Microsoft Garage project over there. Actually has 3 things that it can do. We'll take a look at Python and Excel. 2 great new functions that are coming by, GROUPBY and PIVOTBY, where you can create a pivot table just with a formula. What's the advantage of that? Well, you don't have to count on someone to go click refresh. That's the problem. You create a pivot table, you're going to have to teach your manager and your manager's manager to go refresh if the underlying data changes. So now with a formula version of that, we can just do it. Hey, let's just dive in. Artificial intelligence is all the buzz, and it drives me crazy to see everyone, so excited about artificial intelligence, because right now, a lot of it's not there yet. You go out and you ask ChatGPT something, and it gives you an answer, and maybe that answer works, maybe that answer doesn't work. And I would say, like in accounting, like if it was 90% accurate, no one would be happy with 90% accurate. But this first feature I'm going to talk about is something that is 100% accurate. It's amazing. And it's been in Excel for at least 2 or 3 years, although it's been moving around and changing names and changing the icon. I think they finally honed in on it. And it uses a lot of artificial intelligence. It's out here on the right-hand side of the home screen. And currently it's called Analyze Data. So it's this icon here towards the right-hand side. For a long time, it had been a blue lightning bolt, and it was called Insights or Ideas or things like that. And I'm going to start with this one just because, like, unlike Copilot, This is rock solid and just works all the time and is really kind of amazing. So I'm going to switch over to a data set here. This is, I don't know, 500 rows of data, 9 columns. And I want to do some analysis of this data. I want to understand this data. And so I just select one cell in the data set. And then on the Home tab, coming here to Analyze Data. And the first thing they're going to do is they're going to probably provide 5 or 6 things that they consider to be insights, these little tiles over here. For example, they offer to create a pivot table of revenue by customer and region, cost of goods sold by region, revenue by region and product. But then this fourth one down here is actually very interesting to me because they've identified 6 states within these 2 years that were outliers. The profit was significantly higher. And if that's something that's interesting, you just say insert pivot chart. They'll actually create a new sheet in your workbook called Suggestion 1, create a pivot table and create a pivot chart like that. That's so easy to be able to do that. Now, in this case, it looks like they gave me 4 insights, but really in the background, they keep going. And down here, they say show all 36 results. And so, in this data set, manufacturing is the highest revenue and also cost of goods sold. Frequency of profit, I don't think that's interesting at all. And this is one that you can tell that's not a human doing this because it's saying, hey, we found a correlation that if the quantity goes up, the profit seems to go up as well. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's not really that exciting. So, this feature is a great way if you get someone else's data just to run it through this and, you'll discover some trends that maybe even they didn't know. But then at the top, this is really, really cool. And for those of you who have used Power BI, this feature came back to Excel from Power BI. It started in Power BI, and then they brought it to Excel, improved it a little bit. You can just ask a question about your data. So let's go take a look at the data set here. We have fields like revenue and sector and things like that. So we can ask it for maybe the top 3 customers of field. So it'll understand it. Top 3 customers by revenue. And I'll just press enter. And so it finds Walmart, General Motors, and Exxon. That's great. But then let me change this a little bit. Where the sector is retail. And now they find Walmart, ABC stores, and Kroger. All right. And then if you like that, insert a pivot table. And that's a hard pivot table to do because getting the top 3, that's tricky. You have to know to come into this little drop down here and go to value filters and the top 10 filter, and you can change it to the top 3. I mean, that's pretty deep, for someone to discover that that's there, but yet this analyzed data does a great job of finding it, right? So, we have a couple of things. First off, just select one cell in your data, go to analyze data, and they're going to give you these little tiles down here. If one of the tiles looks good, you can insert it right into your workbook. Remember, there's more tiles at the bottom, in this case, 36 different tiles. And then what's really cool is just being able to create a pivot table just by asking a question, a pivot table or a pivot chart. So that's to me, the thing that I really like about that is that it's always accurate. They're going to create a pivot table that's going to be accurate every single time, as opposed to Copilot, which may or may not be accurate. All right. So as you know, if you're trying to get CPE today, we have 4 CPE questions, and it's time for our first CPE question. If you could put that up. All right.
Can you see it?
I can, yeah.
Woo.
All right. So question number 1, what's your reaction to artificial intelligence in Excel? A, it might be interesting to look for trends and data from other people. That ask a question feature might be useful. I hate creating pivot tables, so it could really be useful. Or I'm not sure I trust a machine to find trends.
I'll just wait a few more seconds to make sure everyone gets a chance.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
All right, last call. There was a few more there. Okay.
Yeah, great. Okay, there we go. So the results, it looks like the first 2 answers are really popular. Ask a question might be useful and might be interesting to look for trends. I always like so we have a few people down there. I'm not sure I trust a machine to find trends. Yeah, I get it. And especially with this next demo. that we're going to do, the Copilot in Excel. All right, so Copilot is this broad name. Copilot, like it's supposed to help you get work done. In Word, they have Copilot in Word in just everything, right? But let's take a look at specifically at what's in Excel. And I have this running in a browser. When Copilot first came out, it was crazy. Microsoft said, okay, what we need is we need you to have 300 licenses for Office and a 3-year commitment. Like that's $308,000 worth of Office for a company that has one guy using Excel. So I like, oh, I'll never be able to do this. But then they gave us, they gave the people that write about Excel a free account so we could try it out, which is great, right? But they gave me a brand new Microsoft account for this free trial, and I don't want to have that in my regular Excel. So I've just been using it in the browser, which is interesting in and of itself. I always said, oh, I'll never use Excel in the browser until they gave me some cool feature. So Copilot is this nice little icon out here on the far right-hand side of the Home tab, this little green and white icon. And one interesting limitation is that if you select some cells in your spreadsheet that are not part of a table, I only work in an Excel table. All right, so you have to select a table for it to work, which is a strange limitation to me. I know a lot of people out there love tables. A lot of my friends use tables. People swear by tables, but tables turn off a few features that I really like. So I tend to not use tables, but I use them here. All right, so one thing it can do is it can calculate new formulas for you. And let's just do a really simple one of gross profit percent, which is profit divided by revenue, or 1 minus cost of goods sold divided by revenue. Either one of those will work. So I just have a little prompt here, and I will click into their question and paste that, calculate gross profit percent. I don't have to tell it, to use revenue and profit. It's just going to understand the words gross profit percent. You get this little working on it and then understanding your data, almost there. I mean, it almost seems like, they're trying to make it into like a little human that's helping you. Generating formula column suggestions. See, now it feels like it's just taking too long. Oh, okay, here we are. This is good. So they're suggesting a formula of profit divided by revenue. I can hover over insert column and see what it's going to look like. And for those of you, who are looking close here, I had this panic when this happened because the numbers were left justified in the preview. And I'm like, that would be stupid for them to do it left justified. I don't like that they gave me 2 decimal points, but I can live with that. But left justifying numbers would just be so wrong. And like when I originally recorded my video out on YouTube about this, I was like, oh, they're not going to left justify it, are they? But when I choose insert column, they actually make it into a real number and it's right justified. So I don't know why that preview shows it as left justified. Now, hey, kudos to Copilot, because when I tried this 4 weeks ago, they gave me a longer formula of 1 minus cost divided by revenue, which is how I used to calculate it. But given the profit is there in column I, there's really no reason to use that longer formula. And now here we are 4 weeks later, they've improved it. Did they watch my video and see me complain about it? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Hard to say. So, that's a pretty good one there. Although it's a formula that most of us, if we're watching this, we could have created that much quicker than Copilot could have. All right. So now here, let's do something a little bit harder. I'm going to ask them to calculate a bonus, 2% of revenue when the revenue is over $15,000 and when the gross profit percent is in the top 20%. That last one is really tricky, right? Because to figure out if they're in the top 20%, that means that they have to look at all the other rows, figure out where the percentile is, and whether we're greater than, and there's 2 conditions in the if statement, right? So let's send this and see how they do on this one. So again, we get these same little tags down here, understanding your data, almost there. Generating formula column suggestions. And here's a suggestion for you, right? And so just first off, inside the if statement, they're using an and function, which is better than nesting 2 if statements in my opinion. So good for them. And then they're using the percentile.inc to calculate the 20th percentile, or actually the 80th percentile. This is a pretty impressive formula that I have to tell you that I probably could not have come up with that as fast as Copilot did. So good for them that they got something there that is fairly impressive for a formula. But is it perfect? No, it's not. All right. So the next thing I want to do is I want to take a look at the quantity field. And this is completely unfair because no one in business would ever do this, but it's the thing that trips up ChatGPT all the time. Is I start to ask them if the number in column F is a prime number. There's not a function in Excel to calculate prime numbers. And so it's a ridiculous question. I get that. But what's interesting is the way that ChatGPT will tell you that you can calculate prime numbers with the isPrime function, which is not a function that exists, right? It's a hallucination. And so I wanted to see how Copilot would do with an equally ridiculous question. And I'm kind of sitting here on the edge of my seat to see what they come up with last time, or what they come up with this time. The last time they did it, it wasn't that impressive. I would actually appreciate it if they would just say, no, there's no way that we can do this. Oh, okay. So this is a hokey formula. This is a super hokey formula in that they did a match into a array constant here of all the prime numbers from 2 to 97, which would work for all of the quantities less than 97. But if we just look here, I can see numbers that are greater than that, right? So the formula here is not going to actually work. If someone actually had an evil bonus program like this, not quite going to work. So it got two of them, one pretty easy, one pretty hard. But then when we asked it something that was very, very hard, it just came back and couldn't quite do it, right? So I'm sure this is going to get better. I'm sure the people at Microsoft are watching this, and it's going to improve. But for right now, I'm just a little nervous about trusting it for something that was really important without doing a lot of testing to make sure that it works. All right, so that's the two artificial intelligence things that we have right off the bat. I am going to get to Python, but let's talk about some cool things that are available right now to all of us. The add-ins icon for the last 10 years has been on the Insert tab. It was Insert Microsoft Store add-ins. You can get these free add-ins. And then just recently in my version of Excel, which is on the beta channel, they moved it to the Home tab. It's this red window pane out here on the right-hand side. And so you might find it on Home, or you might find it on Insert. With Insert, it was kind of like right here to the left of the charts. Why they moved it, I have no idea. It drives me crazy when they move things. You just can't find them anymore. In fact, here's one that I didn't plan on talking about, but I just learned yesterday, this one. So many times I'll create a brand new workbook. I'll work on that workbook for an hour and I never save it. I don't know why I don't save it. And it's okay to not save it until Excel crashes and then you just lost everything. But it's okay, since Excel 2010, we've always had File, Open, and at the very bottom, something called Unsaved Workbooks. So File, Open, you scroll all the way down to the bottom, and there was a button down there, Recover Unsaved Workbooks. That button right there, Recover Unsaved Workbooks. For the last month, that button has been missing in Excel, and it turns out, I don't know why it's back. It's interesting that it's back, that they moved it to the Info tab. So under File, and then Info, under Manage Workbook, is where they hide Recover Unsaved Workbooks. So, if you find that the Recover Unsaved Workbooks is missing for you, go look under File, Info, Manage Workbook. I just added that to the book because, it's one of those things that you're in a panic when you lost an hour's worth of work and you just want it to be where you wanted it to be. Okay, so back to Excel Labs. We're going to go here to add-ins and search for an add-in called Excel Labs. This is an amazing team of people in Cambridge, England. They brought us the fuzzy match add-in many years ago. They brought us fuzzy match in Power Query. They do all kinds of cool things that are, kind of like a Microsoft Garage project. And you go to add-ins and search for Excel Labs. I already have it running here. It's this little beaker, like a scientific beaker, out on the far right-hand side. And they have three things: the advanced formula environment, a function that lets you call ChatGPT right from Excel, and a Python editor. We'll get to that one. But we're going to start here with the advanced formula environment. This is an improvement on the formula bar that we have up there. And of course, you can expand the formula bar, but it's just not the best way to write really long formulas. And a few years ago, they introduced a brand new function called a lambda function, which is a really funny name for a very powerful function. You can, essentially write any logic you want using a lambda function without using any VBA. Okay, so what I have here today is just this strange problem, and no one has this particular problem. It's just the point of we solve something in tiny little steps, right? So I have a month name over here in text. This is data from 2028, and which I know is in the future, and then the sales, and I want to calculate sales per workday. So I have to go figure out for January of 2028 how many workdays there were. So I'm going to use a function called net workdays to count Monday through Friday dates. I have to figure out when the end of the month was, when the first of the month was, and then divide sales by net workdays. And so I end up doing this in tiny little steps. Like, what's the first of the month? And that's based on the text over in A4 and the date value from that. And then how do I get the end of the month? That's the EO month function. And then how many work days are between those two dates? I really should put the holidays in just so I don't count January 1st. And then sales per day, right? So we end up with these 4 sub-formulas that come up with a single answer. But that's not what they want. They want one formula that's going to do everything. So here's what we can do. We can select this range of cells right here. This is the input cells over there in columns A and B, and then the formulas and the output cell in column F. And under Excel Labs, we're going to go to the advanced formula environment and names, and they have this amazing icon here that's called add a function from the grid. Like, if there was a Nobel Prize for Excel formula or Excel functions, Excel features, this little thing that's hiding here in this add-in is probably one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. So you get it. We have 4 sub-formulas coming up with a final answer, and I'm going to say that I want to make that into a new formula. And they look at it, they see that the range I selected is A4 to F4. They were able to figure that A4 and B4 must be the input cells, and the output cell is F4. And I click preview, and they write one of these lambda functions, super powerful function, but hard. They're hard to create. And I can actually then just say, create this function. So they create a new function called sales per day. They used my heading up there. I have to give it month and sales. And then I save this to the workbook. All right. And now this amazing thing, I've just taken a worksheet that has several different subformulas, and they created a new function for me called equals sales per day. It says, what's the month? The month is in A4. What are the sales? That's in B4. And it does the calculation right there. Now, where are they storing this? It's not stored in VBA. I mentioned that already, because the problem with VBA is it won't work in Excel Online. Excel Online will never support VBA, but this will work in Excel Online. And it's actually stored back here on the Formulas tab in the Name Manager. You see they created a brand new name called Sales Per Day and stored that Lambda function definition right in there. Now, this is an amazing way to simplify your workbooks. And this is again from this free add-in called Excel Labs that anyone can add to your Excel, and you'll get that advanced formula environment. All right, cool. The next one, very, very simple, very, very quick. And this probably, how useful this is going to be to you depends on how often you go into calculation options and change it from automatic to manual. I remember long ago, computers weren't that powerful, and I would have spreadsheets that I would enter one number and it would take 40 seconds to calculate. And today I don't have many spreadsheets like that. They calculate in less than a second, so it's good. But if you have something that's calculating really slow, you can come in here and choose manual, right? But then the problem with manual is, you forget that it hasn't calculated and you actually print the thing. Maybe that would be really bad. So they introduced a new thing called stale value formatting. So here I have a workbook, and we'll make sure to go to calculation mode of manual. And then if I change this number right here, the Q1 number from 300 to 400, that should change the total over in column G. It should change the running total in H all the way down. It should change the total in C9, and the grand total in G9 should change. Oh, and I actually have some forecast numbers here. So that number is actually driving that whole first row. And can you see what happened? They've crossed out the numbers that are not currently calculated. I use cross out all the time. I'm a big fan of Control 5. So we said to them, we said, wait, let us change it. And right now, the only thing we can do is just this black strike through. So when you see that black strike through, it means that you're somehow in automatic calculation or manual calculation mode, and you need to calculate now in order to get those to update. I kind of like it. There's weird situations with really big spreadsheets. My coworker, Ron, that I used to work with 20 years ago, swears up and down that he was able to accidentally interrupt a recalc one time, and the numbers were all wrong, right? And of course, he didn't discover it until our manager started yelling because it got published that way, right? So at least if you manage to do what Ron did and interrupt a calculation, even in automatic mode, interrupt a long calculation, you'll get those strike throughs, so you'll know that something is amiss there. So that's stale value formatting coming to Excel. And you can actually turn it off under calculation options. They have a little checkbox here to format stale values or not. I just leave it on all the time. The annoying thing, I guess, the most annoying thing is that formulas like now equal now, those are always out of date, right? It's a volatile function. So the volatile functions will always be crossed out because it's instantly stale, the second after you enter it. So yeah, I don't know, if you actually have those and you don't want them crossed out, you'd have to turn off stale value formatting, I guess, to make that work. All right, now good. We got to this really potentially cool thing, and that's Python. Python and Excel. Python is this amazing analytics language, open source, that has been out for a while. And if you have new hires that are coming out of college, there's a good chance that they've learned Python along the way. That's a little frustrating to me. I wish they would learn Excel as well as they learn Python, but I guess they figure that they can learn Excel somewhere along somewhere. So I was at a Christmas party 10 years ago, and there was a college student there, and she was talking about how cool Python was. You got to learn Python, right? So I went out and I bought a book on Python, and I'm flipping through the book, and there were cool things that you could do, cool things that would have been hard to do in Excel. But then I went back to chapter 1 to learn how to install Python, and it's super hard to install Python. I mean, it's all command prompt stuff, and you have to be at an elevated command prompt and like 16 steps to get Python running. And I just couldn't get over that hump to try and figure out how to have Python running, on my computer. So the book just gathered dust for 10 years. Eventually, I just said, well, this is never going to happen. I'm never going to get this running, right? So I took the book and gave it to Goodwill, and they probably sold it. And then word comes that they're adding an Excel preview, or an Excel preview with Python right in it. All right, so let's just take a quick look at what we can do here in Excel. So the first thing is we don't have to install anything. It's all automatically installed. And back here on the Insert tab, on the Formulas tab, here we can insert Python, try Python samples, and even see that they automatically load up, I think, 4 or 5 of the Python libraries. So if you're reading a book, they'll talk about matplotlib and NumPy and pandas. These are all different things in Python that are libraries that you can install. These are all already installed for you, so that's great. And so we just start with Control-Alt-Shift-P, which I understand is ridiculous, or insert Python. And now we've changed the formula bar into a Python editor. All right, so what we'll do is we'll say that we have a data frame. DF is the variable that all the books use. DF is equal to these cells over here. All right, and then enter doesn't end the formula. We just press enter, it goes to the next line. And I'll say df dot describe, open and close. And I can either return that to the grid, which is what we're going to do right now. We're going to return it as Excel values, press Control Enter. And right there we are. We just ran our first Python. So it comes up with a count, mean, standard, min, 25, 50, 75%, and max of that data. Like that's how long it takes to become a Python programmer using this new Python preview in Excel. So pretty cool. As I got this running, I'm like pretty excited. And I went back to Goodwill to see if the book was still there. It wasn't. So that same author sold that book to me twice. And I went back to the chapter that I really remembered was interesting. And that's something called k-means clustering, which I took my entire customer list, everything that they had purchased, everything that every customer had purchased, and ran it through Python, and it was able to identify groups of customers. So like if you're sending emails out, you could segment your list into that. And k-means clustering was very, very simple to use. And, one line of Python code handled that very simply, right? Now, there's some other examples I find where, it can analyze pictures. Well, that doesn't work in Excel. So you'll find things in Excel that the Python in Excel doesn't do that yet. And at one point I said, just forget it. I'm going to stop doing it in Excel. I'm just going to go install Python. And I had my web guy come over and try and explain it to me. And again, it was 16 steps. I said, no, I'm just going to keep using it in Excel. Right. So the good news is that the Pythons come to Excel. I generally tend to find people, either Excel people like me or Python people. Right. And finding someone who can speak both languages, that will be quite the trick. So Python and Excel and k-means clustering. Pretty heavy duty things there. All right, let's get to the new function that I really think is my favorite of all time here. They give us PIVOTBY, and I'm a huge pivot table fan, but the one that I'm actually using all the time is a function called GROUPBY. GROUPBY. So if you can imagine, I have some data over there. Let's make it a little bit larger so we can see it. Category, product, sales, and cost. And I want to get total sales and cost for each, let's say, category. And so this is a function called GROUPBY. The row fields, the things I want to have down the left-hand side, are A4 to A21. What do I want to add up? I want to add up C4 to D21, so both sales and cost. And then right here, this third formula is called, the third argument is called function. And you think about the functions that are built into functions like subtotal and aggregate and into pivot tables. Those ones sum, count, average, numeric count versus text count, standard deviation, variance, min, max, and all of those. But there's even more here. Let's just take a look at the list. So we'll do GROUPBY. The row fields are category. The values that we want to add up are sales and cost right here. And then our list of functions. Oh, it's funny. It's not auto-populating. I thought it would auto-populate right there. They have things like the first or last. You can concatenate. You can even write your own lambda function and drop it in there. And so in this case, I'm just using a sum, but it's pretty cool, right? And then here's one where I asked for two different row fields, so category and product. And so within category, I get all the fruit and then all the herbs and all the vegetables. But they have things out here for, do we want to include totals? So here I'm getting totals for each group, right? So the vegetable total, the fruit total, the herbs total. Here I just put the grand total at the top, which is a friend of mine in Wales always says the pivot table should have the totals at the top. If you want that, you can control it, move them to the top. And so, just the ability to get a count of how many records are vegetables or the total revenue that's vegetables, this GROUPBY is a great new function. Now, today, this is out for insiders, Microsoft insiders on the beta channel. It hasn't even gotten to the targeted channel yet, but it's a really good function that should be rolling out. If you're on the monthly channel, probably by June or so, you should have it. If you're on the semi-annual channel, you're probably gonna have to wait till January of next year to get that. Or you can go to your IT department and say, hey, why don't you move into the insiders program? And they'll maybe do that. PIVOTBY is very similar to GROUPBY, but it has the ability to add column fields in. So in this case, I want to take the region field and move it to be across the top. And then also same thing for the column totals. Do I want subtotals in there? And what order should the columns be in? So here's a very simple pivot table using the PIVOTBY function. I can even do a percent of. So for each item, let's turn off this. Let's turn off the automatic. There, yeah, go back to automatic calculation. So here for each item, I'm getting the percent using a brand new function called percent of. You can even just do equal. Actually, here I think I've done it. This brand new percent of function to calculate a percentage of total, which of course we could do. We could easily do equal C5 divided by the sum of C5 to C10, or put the total down in row 12. There's lots of ways to do it, but just having percent of is sometimes going to be a little bit faster. All right, Stephanie, let's put up our second CPE question there.
There, give me 1 second.
Yep. Okay, so which function that I just described would you use more? GROUPBY, PIVOTBY, neither, or both?
All right, another 5 seconds-ish. All right, last call. Anyone?
Okay, great. GROUPBY, just by a nose. GROUPBY, PIVOTBY, and then the people that say both. So it looks like that's going to be a very popular function. Okay, perfect. Back to our what's new in Excel. Here on the Insert tab, they've given us a new item called a checkbox. This is a really weird thing, but I know a lot of people build applications in Excel where you need to be able to check something on or off. So here I'll bring up a little example of the checkboxes. So I have some steps here. All right, let's start again. So step 1. And then here I want to have checkboxes. So I just select those cells and under insert, say checkbox. And what this is doing, this is saying that these cells are either going to be true or false. And it inserted all of them as false immediately. And then when I choose something, it changes that cell to be true. So it's kind of like formatting that's sitting on top of the true and false that says instead of displaying true or false, we're going to display the checkbox. So, I think it'll be handy for people, and then of course you can do the little if. So equal if the checkbox, then done. Otherwise, still needs to be done. So you can build formulas based on the checkbox, and then when it gets checked, of course, it'll change to done. So just a tiny little thing. I almost wonder if Google Sheets has this because, the fact that they added it so quickly. The great thing is Google Sheets does something, and then Excel will do the same thing to match. It's great to have competition because, if either product adds it, then, we'll see it come over. All right. This next one, prevent numbers from changing on import or during replace. This is one that's been just, for anyone who uses the text to columns wizard or the import text wizard, there's so many times that we get data that's coming in from a CSV file, and Excel will just do crazy things to it. Like it'll take a number, convert it to scientific notation. It will convert something to a date sometimes if it looks date-like enough. If it's more than 15 digits, it will truncate those digits and convert it to scientific notation rather than just keep it as text. It's one of those things in text to columns. In step 3, you can choose that column and say, just leave this as text. Don't change anything. Well, now we have the ability to go into Excel options and say, let's see, where is it? Right here, automatic data conversion. So the way that Excel's been operating for the last 30 years is they're going to remove leading zeros and convert to a number. They're going to keep the first 15 digits of long numbers and then change it to scientific notation. Any digits surrounding an E will be scientific notation. and I think there was one more, but they've now given us the ability to come in here and turn these off. So for me, because all of them annoy me all of the time, I go into File, Options, and then Advanced, and scroll down here and find this new set. Somewhere else. Proofing. Nope. Save. Nope. Data. Here we are. So File, Options, Data is where it's been moved to now. Now that's out of beta. So under automatic data conversions, turn these off. This new one just slipped in here, convert continuous letters and numbers to a date. I'm going to turn that off. And so now anytime that I do a text to columns or import text, it will just leave things exactly as they look. If it's a 16-digit credit card number, it's going to stay 16 digits, and the last digit's not going to convert to 0, right? So this is actually like turning off functionality that's been in Excel for 30 years and just annoying the heck out of us. So, you know, prevents the scientific notation. The numbers just come in as text. Looks really good. So I'm really happy that they gave us that and that it's rolled out now widely to anyone that has Microsoft 365. Okay, check performance in Excel. Let's open this one. You know, I have so many workbooks that have just been around forever, and you know they live out here, and as life goes on, you do things to them, you add little things out to the right hand side, you add notes to yourself, and then you know years later those notes are no longer relevant. On the review tab, they have a new icon here. It's the fourth icon in, called check performance, and it's going to go look for things that, like, just these remnants that potentially are slowing down the workbook. So here on the 4 sheets, it's found various things. There's empty cells to be optimized, like these formatted cells are empty, and it's offering to remove the text properties in the cell border for all of these, remove a number format, remove a fill color, and that all looks good. I'm just going to let them optimize the sheet. And so it cleaned that up. Come back here to all sheets. Under the to-do sheet, it looks like we have the same kinds of problems, some text alignment, and you can go click on the various, like here, check this out. This is like way outside of the spreadsheet. I have no idea like how that's there, why that was there. That must have been something I pasted in one day and then deleted it, but everything still has the properties. And so, you know, it's slowing the worksheet down. Optimize the sheet, and 44 cells are optimized. Okay, but it's the kind of thing where sometimes, right, this is the closing title card for my YouTube videos, right? And I have this picture of the guy that does the cue cards for Jimmy Fallon, who did some cue cards for me back there. And I needed these little Twitter logos to line up with the words. And in order to do that, I had to take row 4 and make row 4 taller. Like that was the only way on that particular day that I had it. And they want to change that row height, right? So this is one where they see that row height in 4 and they don't realize why I've done it. And if I would optimize that, then things aren't going to line up anymore. It's going to crash into the picture, and I'm going to undo. Let's see. Oh, undo. That's funny. I thought I could undo optimize. Yeah, there we are. Okay, so it came back in that case. And they'll even warn you that, like, there's things that it just doesn't know. Like, for example, it was a thing I didn't even realize. They said, if you're doing pixel art in Excel, don't run this, because we are not going to detect that that's a picture. We're just going to think that someone went crazy with fill color, and we're gonna opt to remove it all, right? So I had to go Google what pixel art is, and apparently there's a bunch of people that do this, right? Yeah, so you know, sometimes we're doing things on purpose in Excel, and Excel is not going to understand the whole concept, and so it's offering to get rid of that. And this is one where you don't want to do it. So, like, don't ever just let them fix everything without you going to look to see if there was some good reason why you might have been using that various items. Okay, cool. We're on here to pictures in cells and the image function. I think I showed the image function last time, but we're going to take a look at picture in cells first. You know, for the last 30 years, anytime that we inserted a picture in Excel, it is always sitting on top of the grid, right? So if you have numbers, you can't see the numbers behind. But now we have this new ability here under insert pictures, and we can place in the cell, right? So these pictures over here that I added are just tiny little pictures. I selected all three of them and added them, and they now live in that cell. Like, you know, I could pop it out here using this icon if I wanted to, but it's actually just, it's a new type. Oh, whoops. It's a new data type for a picture. All right. Now, in order to make these really work and be useful, you have to go in and add alt text. So alt text is for people that are using Excel with a screen reader. It'll describe the picture, but we're not doing it for them. We're doing it for the ability to be able to sort and filter based on the words. So how do we get to alt text? Down here at the bottom is accessibility, investigate. And when we do that, we get this brand new tab that's usually hidden called accessibility. And we can define alt text, the alt text panel. Like I went in here in these three icons, I called the yellow one, I created alt text of maybe, and then alt text of no, and then alt text of yes, right? And now all kinds of amazing things happen. Here's my lookup table where I have the words maybe, no, and yes, and then a picture. And my formula says, you know, go look and see if the actual is greater than the goal. And if it was, then get me yes, otherwise maybe or no, and do an X lookup to return the picture back here. And then I can filter the pictures to get all of the no's, let's say, right? So those are all people that didn't meet their goal, and I need to, you know, do whatever I need to do, you know, to go talk to those people, right? So being able to filter by picture is really cool. You can even do a lookup. So here's the image. Go look up the picture and figure out the word that belongs next to it. And you can even have your pictures in a pivot table. So if I would choose all of the yeses, see, I get the yes right there in the pivot table. Or check this out. Where's my pivot table? Here it is, pivot table. No. So I want to be inside the pivot table analyze, show the field list. There we are. I'm going to take that image field and move it to be a row field, right? So I get pictures right inside the pivot table. So this new picture in cells and being able to filter or sort or pivot or XLOOKUP based on the picture itself is a cool one. All right, good. The image function, let's just take a quick look at that. This is only for images that are stored online, so you have to have a URL to it. And so this is a new formula here called the image formula. So out in column G, I have the URL that points to the picture. And then the image function will pull that picture in and even provide the alt text being the title over there. So the picture itself will be as large as the cell. So when I make column E wider, the picture gets larger. That, and you can align, so like align top would have made more sense there. And I even had this tied to a slicer. So as I choose from the slicer, the picture changes. Boy, this is gonna be great for dashboards and things like that. Or you can just bring them all back in a grid using the brand new function called wrap rows. All right, so there's our image function. Two different things there. Picture and cell are for pictures stored locally on your computer. Image is for pictures that are out on your company website or something like that. All right, Stephanie, let's do our third CPE question.
Okay.
All right, which function inserts an image in Excel? Is it equal picture, equal JPEG, equal image, or equal graphic?
Gonna wait a little longer. Okay, last call. Okay.
All right, yeah, image is the image function, so good job there. Almost everyone got that. All right, let's talk about calculate part of a formula without changing the formula. I have a friend who's been making videos on YouTube for 18 years now. His name is Mike Gervin. He runs a great channel called Excel is Fun. And Mike has this amazing trick that he does all of the time. He does such a great job explaining his complex formulas. And the way that he'll do that is he will go into the formula and select part of the formula up here in the formula bar. So maybe like A7. And he'll want to show you what A7 is. And what he'll do is he'll press the F9 key, and Excel will replace A7 with the current value that's in A7. Now, in this case, it's a date, so we're getting the serial number, maybe not that useful. You'll see Mike do this all the time, but I never do this because what's really important right now at this moment, because I've pressed F9, I need to press escape in order to bring back the original formula. And if you fail to press escape, then you've just hard-coded in that date inside of the formula. So for me, because I'm not careful, it is a very good way for me to screw up the worksheet. Like I won't use the F9 trick. But someone at Microsoft knew about the F9 trick and kind of realized how dangerous it was. And they said, let's just make this easier for you. So any part of the formula, you can select that formula either in the cell or up here in the formula bar and just wait like a second. And a tooltip will appear, 46,784. So it shows me the intermediate calculation of that bit. So like here, if network days is equal to 1, I just select that whole part and I get true. So I know that that part is true. And the great thing is if I just press enter accidentally, it's not going to change the formula, right? So just a really tiny fix there to calculate part of a formula without having to actually press F9 and potentially change the formula. All right, Stephanie, let's do the last CPE question there.
All right, give me 1 second.
All right. All right. After selecting part of the formula in the formula bar, how do you see the results of the selection? Is it A, press F9, B, double click, C, press Control Alt Shift E, or D, it just appears in the latest version?
Few more seconds. All right, last call. Okay.
Okay, so we give credit for either F9, which is the way that we've always been doing it, or it just appears in the latest version. Either of those are good answers. Okay, good. Now we're down to a few little things, but they're cool in most cases. This one appeared about a year and a half ago. So I select some cells in Excel, and we all know that we can look down here and see the sum or the average or the count. If you're not seeing max or min, you want to right click on the sum and turn on the max and min. They're not there by default, but they're certainly available. But my problem with this is lots of times I'll need to take that number and do something with it, like send it in an email, right? So I see down here the average is 544.9. The thing that they just recently gave us is that if I left click the 544.9, let me just hover there. It says in parentheses, copy to clipboard. So if I left click, I just added the 544.9 to the clipboard, and then I can come anywhere and Control V and paste that, including to an email or something like that, right? So really small improvement. If you have Microsoft 365, that definitely should be there. Data validation partial matching. This is one that was there and then it disappeared and now it's back. This is a really good item. So data validation, back here on the data tab, you can set up validation to allow from a list. And so for example, here's my list, and here we get the little drop down where we can choose from the list. Most of the time, so the list won't be there in column E, it'll be somewhere hidden on a back sheet where no one will ever see it. And people were always like, well, why can't we just start to type and have it narrow the list? And so you see that we have words here like apple juice, apple butter, Fuji apple. And if I just start to type APP, you see that they automatically limit the list to apple, apple juice, apple butter, Fuji apple, crab apple, but not pineapple, because there's not a space before the APP in pineapple, right? So this is something that people have been asking for a long time, and they finally have given that to us. And you can just press tab to select from the list. Actually, here, let's just type APP. I can use the up and down arrow, and then when I get to the one, tab, and we'll be able to select that. something that people have wanted, and they finally gave it to us in Excel Online, and then it disappeared from Excel Online, and then it came back, and it's a great one. All right, data from picture. This is on page 256 in the book, and the thing that annoys me most about data from picture is that it's here in the other Power Query tools, and I even say right in the book that data from picture is not a Power Query tool. It's this strange little tool that you take a picture of a receipt or something like that, and then paste it into Excel. And their idea is that they're going to get you just the data. All right, so here's a receipt from a restaurant. All of this stuff at the top that's not lined up in columns, you need to get rid of that. So under picture format, go to crop and remove that. So you just have just the text that's in some sort of a nice little table. And then select that, and I'll copy it to the clipboard, and we will come here and data from picture from clipboard. And they try and do optical character recognition on the picture. What is so frustrating is they do a really, really bad job of it. Anything that's in pink is something that they say, well, this is what we think it is. Like here, they made it IO 0.95. You know, to me, these are all numbers. They're all currency symbols. Why would you ever put the letter I and the letter O after a currency symbol? It makes no sense. And if you just get frustrated and say, just insert the data, they're going to warn you. Like, no, we think that things are wrong here, and you're responsible for the accuracy. Insert anyways. And, you know, it's just, by the time you go through and fix everything, a lot of times I feel like it would have been faster just to type the thing from the beginning. And the thing that frustrates me, Microsoft, huge company, right? There's two guys in Egypt who have a program that does this so remarkably well. And they sell a little subscription where you buy 50 conversions a month for $10 or something like that. And I said to the people at Microsoft, just go buy this out, right? And replace your horrible thing here that doesn't work with what these two guys in Egypt have managed to do. Or, you know, I don't get it. So data from picture, it's there, but I just don't think it's working very well. All right, let's do one more, and that is this great new text functions. Back in 2017, they gave us text join, allows us to take a bunch of text and join it together. And they teased, we're going to give you text split. Like, they made it sound like it was just around the corner. And it took 4 years before they gave us text split. And they gave us text before and text after. So here's text split. Somehow the data got over there in column A with 4 fields separated by commas. And we just say text split, and the delimiter is a comma, and it'll break the data out without me having to do text to columns. It's very nice that you can even specify a row delimiter. So if you have different sentences, ignore empty cells in case there were 2 commas. So you have a choice of what to do with those 2 commas in a row. And then text before and text after. So this is, you know, we had ways to do this before, but it's so much easier with text before. Just give me everything before the dash, or get me everything after the dash. So that would be a left and a find before this function came along. This would be a mid with a find +1 or something like that, and maybe a length function. So, you know, we don't have to worry about that. But what's really nice here is this ability to say which dash. So if you have multiple dashes and you want to get everything after, let's say, the second dash, or text before the second dash, you can specify which instance number you want. And my last trick here in the last 2 minutes is you're allowed to specify a positive number 2 to say that you want everything after the second dash, and it'll count from the left. But they used something that a friend of mine named Charles Williams in England invented, where if you specify -2, it counts from the end. So here I have a bunch of words in a cell. I don't know how many words there are, but I want to get the last word. So this says everything after the space. Which space? It's the -1 space, which means go to the end of the word and count backwards until you get the space. And so you can isolate the last word in that cell, which might be useful to get, you know, genre or cost center or something like that, you know, when you have those concatenated keys. All right, there we go. That's a lot of what's new in Excel. Check out the book, MrExcel 2024, More for Apps. We'll send that out to you tomorrow. You'll have the whole PDF. You know, this is the 7th edition, so I have a lot of great tips in there from over the years. So thanks very much for signing in today, and have a great day. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, thank you again. And everyone will receive the recording tomorrow along with Bill's new book. So please keep a lookout for that. And also, yeah, thank you again for joining us. And thank you, Bill. Everyone have a great day.
Thanks.